people were asking, why is atheism increasing today, and why are people moving towards it? How can we prevent atheism in ourselves and in our children, and how can we help others and ourselves rebuild our faith? How do we stop being indifferent about our iman?
Sometimes we get taken in by a promoted idea. You want an idea to spread, you promote it, you pump it, you pump it, you pump it, and then people take it as fact, and they even don't try to resist it. You can see hard for us to speak on. I don't want to distract our subject by mentioning those campaigns, but it's very, very obvious. So we should not be taken in by these things. However, what is important, which I really loved about what you were mentioning, is that it's important for us to address the roots of the problem. People have doubts, and that's good. Because how does Islam turn to Iman? When a little child is 7 years old, they're Muslim or either Muslim, maybe their parents are teaching them to pray, but there's no real Iman. It's not like I understand the dimensions of Iman, that they have embraced it. Iman is a willful activity. You choose to follow, to believe out of conviction. Islam turns to Iman when you start asking questions. And then you'll find, yes, this is the path. It's not about me following my parents. This is the right way. So the most important part I really want to emphasize is that encourage your children to ask questions, so long as it's asked respectfully. Even if the question is, well, how do I know there is one God rather than two or none or so? As long as it's asked respectfully, engage in that dialogue. And I have to tell you, the rhetoric of Islam is so powerful, it dominates. It just takes somebody who has some knowledge about Islam. If you can answer it, answer it. If you can't, then ask your imam to give you the information so that you can share with your children.
And let me add also, that was beautiful. MashaAllah, that was like, you know, basbousa, man. It's a famous sweet. Who made basbousa? That also you should be encouraging, listen, we donate to nonprofits. Okay, we donate to mosques, and oftentimes when we donate to mosques, that's accompanied with a demand for political power. That's a disaster. It should be a demand for programming. So if I have teenage kids and I'm donating to the mosque, I want to ask the imam, listen, can you put together, like, say, every 4 months a program on, like, dealing with issues that are, like, current trends? Like, that's something, like, super important. Right? Then secondly, like, what we've seen is communities that have really strong, welcoming, not necessarily hyper-religious, but welcoming, deliberately good and awesome, caring youth groups. There's less of this kind of atheism setting in people's hearts. When the youth group becomes the mahkama, where we judge people and we tell people they're not good Muslims and they're bad Muslims, and then we start to see problems. So I think also programming, furnishing programming in a community is super important. We have a question from Malak, mashallah, because she's a woman, and it'd be really awkward for us to answer this question, even though we are only a few years older than you. Assalamu alaikum, Malak. Wow, they knew your name and everything. My daughter is 11 years old, and she was asked by a stranger at a public place why she wears hijab. This is the last time, like, you know, this is the first time she faced such a question from a non-Muslim, and she answered as best she could. What would be some advice that you would give someone in that situation if they were asked why do they wear hijab by a non-Muslim?
Well, brother Imam Suhaib, I would answer the question. Okay, so obviously the reason we wear hijab is because Allah tells us to in the Quran. He says women should wear the hijab. So that's already enough reason. But then also something else Allah mentions in the Quran is He asks us to wear the hijab so people know we're Muslim. And a lot of people tend to overlook that reason, so that when people see like a Muslim woman wearing the hijab, they know that she has the morals and values of a Muslim. Like, you don't cheat, you don't lie, you don't gossip, all that stuff. And I feel like that's a reason a lot of people overlook wearing the hijab, but that's personally why I wear it, because Allah told us in the Quran that Muslim women wear the hijab so that we're identified as Muslim. Which I think, honestly, a lot of people say it's not fair that men don't wear the hijab. I mean, it's not fair men don't have to cover their head, but it's their laws, because you don't know a man is a Muslim if they're walking down the street. But you know a Muslim woman is a Muslim from their hijab. So that's why I wear it. It says, by following a good attitude, knowledge, and being surrounded by good people, what is your advice for somebody who has anxiety and stress that is a struggle and obstacle for them? Like, how could they have good character and gain knowledge and have a good relationship with people if they have anxiety and stress? And this question's for both of you.
It's for you, man. Go ahead, knock it out. So, obviously, each person's situation is different, but I will give, inshallah, some answer that's probably applicable to many people. First of all, sometimes we focus on solving the problems of life, and we forget a very important component, the heart, that is really at the key of finding peace while we are living in a troubled world. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. So one component of finding this peace, of moving away from the stress, it's not the only component, but one component is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remind myself, why is it am I doing what I'm doing? Why is it that I'm studying or working or dealing with this issue? And how am I dealing with it? It's in relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one component. The second thing is, don't sweat the small stuff. I remember when I was little, and one time in an exam where I prepared to the utmost and I got a B, it was the end of the world. Not because it was the only B I ever got, but because I thought I was so super prepared. It was the end of the world for me. But you know, now years pass, it doesn't make a least difference whether I got that A or that B on that exam. So sometimes we end up with tunnel vision, focusing on little things, and we don't look at the big picture. So let me start off with the biggest picture. The biggest picture is, what kind of a human being am I? Is my life going in the direction of fulfilling my purpose? Or is my life going in the direction of, I'm going to play a little Nintendo or a little PS, or I'm going to spend time with friends, or I'm going to go on Snapchat? What is important in my life? And if the concerns of my life matter, then to me my life will matter, and I will be less concerned about the little things. And if the concerns of my life are small, then I'm going to be very anxious about the smallest things, such as, wearing the wrong shoes. So these are a couple of keys, inshallah, to reducing the stress. The last thing is that have perspective in your life. Are you spending time on the important things? Are you stressing about the things that don't matter? Sometimes you just simply drop things. Maybe you're spending too much time trying to learn something or to do something, and it's just too much. But if you prioritize in your life what is truly important for me and focus on that, you are likely to have more balance in your life. Wallahu a'lam.
This is really awesome. Thank you. So I work at a university, basically, which is a center of anxious people. Especially the last few weeks, it's been like absolutely insane. We have 3,000 Muslim students at NYU. Every campus has a musalla, alhamdulillah. Imam Khalid Latif is doing an incredible job. Mona Haidar also, Rap My Hijab, works with us. She's an absolutely great, wonderful colleague. Anxiety is a very real thing. And my advice to you would be really three things. Number one is, if you need a therapist, you should be getting therapy. I talked about this in my class 2 days ago, the idea of taklif naqis, that cognition and emotional health are part of taklif, part of being responsible. So, for example, in the Maliki, you just lost your job. In the Maliki madhab, are you anxious right now? No, it's all good. In the Maliki madhab and in the Shafi madhab, they say that someone that has like OCD is allowed to say their niyyah. So, usalli arba'a rakat salat dhuhri lillahi ta'ala, because they're OCD, right? So they're taking into consideration the person has some kind of emotional, psychological issue, or even a cognitive issue. Someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, we say if they don't have wudu, their salah is accepted. If they pray 25 rakat for fajr, their salah is accepted, right? So there's dispensation for people. So I would encourage you, if needed, to take advantage of mental health provider, emotional health provider, and I believe large institutions. I say this a lot. We did this when I was in Boston. We have a clinician, Sister Hala, at NYU, who just does a great job serving our kids. Larger institutions need to form relationships with clinicians. If you're in the audience, you have, and therapists, a great role to play in community. Just by volunteering some time, being on the front lines of helping people. It's hard. Young women, I have a daughter, she's going through a lot of stuff with body, construction of beauty, my son asked me, does he have abs? I'm like, dude, you're 14, dude. Think about abs, man. Just let me punch you. You have some abs, you know. I'm old school. I didn't punch him. The second thing, and I think this is something that we don't value, and I said it earlier, is, man, you need to have friends that you can talk about. Like, you know, when I'm around you guys, I get super anxious, man. Like, you need people who love you to that degree, man. Like, if you're around people that you can't tell that, like, I feel certain ways, and it doesn't, don't become a leaner, you know what I'm saying? But, like, just I'm someone, like, when I was young, we had a youth group, and there was this one brother, like, he would never come, but he would always hang out with me, but he would never go, like, to our youth group. And then I was 20. And then he told me, like, I have, like, social anxiety, man, you know? And I never heard of social anxiety before in my life, you know? But then I was like, it's okay, like, we love you, you know? Like, we're your brothers, like, we got your back. And, like, just tell us when you start to feel anxious, and, like, we'll help you walk through this process. And, like, it helped him out. So I think when you talk about having friends, like, having friends are people who are, like, you shouldn't be feeling that way around them, you know? And then, like, if they really love you and they care about you, siddiq is a friend, you know? The honest and person with integrity, you should be able to, like, to tell them, this is how I feel, and I need help. And if they love you and if they're your friends, they're going to help you through that process. I would also expand this and say that a lot of people don't go to mosque because they're anxious, man. The first class I had at NYU, I have two really awesome assistants. One's Hindu. She's so cool. She, like, gets our words wrong. So it's like when you say subhanallah, she says A'udhu Billah. So it's like something good happens. She's like, A'udhu Billah. I'm like, no, that's subhanallah. So awesome. It's so cool, man. She taught me Hindi, chai, Jenny, chai, you know, stuff. So, like, Vrenda, she's going to Paris now, but she was with us. And then Hira is a young girl, originally from Pakistan. So they work with me. In our first class, we were leaving the building to go have halal hamburgers, like amazing halal hamburgers in New York. And we saw this lady that was, like, kind of disoriented. And, you know, I said to her, do you need help? And she's like, I'm here for your class. And she's, like, super scared. So then Vrenda was like, Vrenda's not the most practicing Hindu, okay? Let's go for burgers. So she went and had burgers with us, man. And then she said to me, I was about to leave, man. Like, I was getting really intimidated by this place. And, like, if you, Hindu girl, hadn't invited me for hamburgers, which is kind of a double entendre, I don't think I would have, like, came. And then after that, she never misses a class. She's, like, super anxious. Like, so never underestimate also in community when you see people, like, just being that person, it's, like, nice. You know? Invite a convert over for Eid, man. They don't have places to go for food. Divorcees in our community are going through it, man. It's a tough place to be, right? So you could touch old people. Like, we should have a Meals on Wheels for senior citizens in the Muslim community. Our baby boomer community is getting old, right? Those little things, man, that, like, touches people, like, insulates them and brings them a sense of security.
Okay, another question we have is, in the verse recited for this talk, it is Isa alayhi salatu wasalam who says he was made to be a blessing. What is the basis for saying we as individuals should be a blessing when we are not prophets? I'm not challenging or disagreeing with the idea, just curious. It's for both.
But, like, even if you challenge, it'd be dope. Like, sorry, I can't see. I'm getting old now. But, like, even if you challenge us, that would be good. Like, don't worry about it. Don't challenge us now. But I'm saying, like, that would be an awesome thing. That would be you sharing your blessing with us. Now, for the answer, go to the next guy.
I just want to say one sentence. Your challenge is to be that blessing.
What was that, man? You should run for office, man. That's amazing. No, I mean, number one is we're blessed by our association with the prophets, right? The Prophet ﷺ in numerous ahadith mentioned that his ummah is blessed because they are followers of the prophets. They are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the more good we do sincerely and the more difficult good we do sincerely, the greater the blessing. Al-jazaa min jins al-amal. So, of course, we're not blessed like in a prophetic way. The prophets are ma'soom. We talked about that, and that knowledge retreat is super important. I talked about this yesterday. But we are also blessed by Sayyidina Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran and doing good, because Allah, one of the blessings of faith is that your deeds are blessed. So the believer, that's why in numerous hadith read like, one deed is magnified to this amount, one good is magnified. That's the blessing of Iman. But if we don't use it, that's on us.